Start with the 2 circles. Trying to get the shoulder blade releasing sort of here. My shoulder blade comes away here, and that allows the hand to start coming back towards me. And then to keep it coming without making a circle or without walking around myself, I need to turn back. So whilst I'm reaching with the arm, releasing the shoulder blade, I need to make sure I stay in this foot until I pull it back. Trying to get the same feeling that we've got in the arm of the shoulder blade releasing, happening in the leg. This is when I really have to make sure I have the weight in the other foot. And I just lift my heel and get the sense that my hip is trying to come away from my spine. That's it. At the same time that my shoulder comes away from the spine. You have to make sure you've got everything in this foot, so that you can really release here. This is what's difficult. So clearly distinguish full and empty. We want to really make sure that when we decide to be full, we're actually full, and this foot can come up. That's it. So you can balance. You have to lean over. Make sure this leg stays bent, the supporting leg. So often I see, when people try to pick a foot off the ground, they lift it by straightening the other leg. And we're doing the opposite. So I want to really sink down here to lift this leg. So one foot comes up because I've sunk into the other one. Inclining the spine, I'm just making sure that I'm staying in the outside edge. I mean, if we were using it, in a sort of fighting situation, you obviously wouldn't lean. So it's just a technique to make sure that I'm really drifting in this direction as well as down, to make sure I stay in the outside edge. See, I came in then. It's really difficult. Part of you that's afraid to fall out of your circle, you have to just sort of fight that. The leg releases, the arm releases. And now back to the two circles, but seeing it now more of a figure of eight. I'm looping around this foot, and then I'm looping around this foot. So now, rather than it being two separate circles, it's now just one figure of eight. The important parts of the figure of eight are really the edges, the extent of the two loops, but also the bit in the middle where the two branches cross over. Here it's passing through me. It's coming in my Dan Chen and out of my Ming Men. And then it really reaches out. And in my mind, I'm seeing a figure of eight that is much bigger than what needs to be to contain my body, so that I get a sense of trying to drift along the line. And that really takes me into my outside edges. Feel that point where it passes through. And then here, just make sure that you don't come forwards too soon and you don't bring the knee in. So I'm looping right behind my heel and then out to the side, around the toes, and then back in, back here, and then out to the side. And what we'd like to catch is what I have to do with my relaxation to make this pathway in a natural way. If I want the energy to come around like this, around from the back, then something in me has to just really let go at that point. Let go, and then it's almost like something oozes out of my sacroiliac, and then I can just bring that around this trace on the ground. It is like a big thick tail that drops down and just scrapes along the ground. Tail either side, coming out of each sacroiliac. You think of it as the wing of the hips, the wings of the hips, or just as like Superman's cape, you're pulling that around with your little finger. And for this to happen, because I'm relaxing into it, I have to become bigger. My mind has to become a bigger mind. That there's some part of me that sort of expands beyond my own body. I have a largesse, like a generosity of spirit that just enables this trace just to happen in a natural way. And you know you've got it when you want to smile. You know, when you smile, the face widens. So there's a sense that I smile into my sacrum and it allows it to widen. A smile of belief. It's like you're smiling because you know it's okay and everything's in place. You're not struggling anymore. And this is the thing, it's our normal mind, our normal anxious mind is small, it's sort of shriveled, and it will occupy a much smaller part of you than it could. So when your mind expands, then you just become bigger. It's a bigger soul. It really is the realm of soul. Here, I just need the generosity of spirit just to be able to open up here. And then it comes back in. So this is like the shrinking part of pulling in as you breathe out. And then this is opening up again here. And there's always part of you that resists, that finds it difficult, can't do it as well. It may be because of injury. You know, you may have, a lot of people have got one leg that's been injured at some point and they find that one difficult. Or it could just be some trauma or something that's created a part of yourself that you just don't want to go into. We're just trying to become complete, become whole. It's interesting that in Hebrew, the word for peace is shalom, but the word for wholeness is shalem. So it's the same word. It's just exactly the same root. So you only reach peace by becoming whole. And for that, I need to be able to occupy every part of myself. Every part of myself has to be willing to wake up and become part of me. There's no dark areas that I dare venture into. Moving from leg to leg. But again, the way that we do, I bend this leg and then I straighten this leg to really push myself down here. And then I bend this leg and really straighten this leg. And again, we can use this to help us get into places we don't want to get into. So this is my bad leg, my right leg. So when I come into it, this is always wanting to pull in the knee. And so I have to really concentrate on just keeping it open in the hip and in the sacroiliac. So I can use the straightening of this leg just to make sure I force it open. And then I pull here. And now this is easy for me. I can push into here and this just wants to open up. Now I pull here and then I push here. And I just have to make sure that I'm trying to get as big a circle, as big a roundness here as I had on the other side. Pull and use this leg. So this is our reasons insight. If you want to go into a leg, it's not just a matter of sinking down with gravity into it. You have to use the emptying leg to force yourself down into it. The pushing leg takes over quite quickly. The pulling is almost like a little, it's like a catch of spirit. It's like a little burst that catches the ground. And then I can start using this, which is this long, slow energy to actually get me right down into the leg. And then this one catches. And this one pushes slowly. And then let's bring it into riding horse. Feel the spread from the back, the shoulder blades really expanding apart down into these hands that are moving together. Same here, my hips are trying to release from the sacrum, and that is causing this pull together of the feet. And now let's breathe. And with this phase, I'm trying to draw myself down into the legs. I'm sinking here strongly, and then I can rise up here. It was all legs. You know, it says in the classics, if there's something wrong with your Tai Chi, always look to your legs. When you're in your legs, when you're sunk, when you have a root, then you can't think to yourself, I'm sucking myself down here. But whatever happens in the upper body is a consequence of what's happening in the legs. So I just want to get away from this feeling of having some sort of action in my arms that's just sitting on this platform called my legs. The hands come in because I'm sucking myself down into the feet. But there's a delay, there's a slight delay between the action of your legs and the action of your arms. It happens in the legs first. I start sucking myself down and my hands drift towards each other. And I bend double a little bit. Then same exercise, but now using it to turn. So now I straighten my legs, but instead of coming up, I use it to turn to the side. And then I bend the legs again to try and suck myself down into them. It's so difficult to get it coming from the legs. It's quite easy to use my mind to do something with my upper body and do something with my lower body and convince myself that it's coming from the legs. But I want it really, it's because of the legs. The legs are sucking the energy down into them. And now here they're squeezing the energy up. It's not really the legs, it's the root. It's the part of your legs that's in the ground, that's connected to the ground. So if you're working from your root, at no point do you come out of it. So as I'm straightening my legs here, that straightening is turning me this way, but it's also injecting my feet into the ground. At no point do I separate from the ground. The point of separation, if there is going to be one, would be here as I come back. This is why I have to really suck myself down into the legs here. I'm squeezing into the ground and squeezing up into myself. You're always flowing both directions down the channel of energy. Shoulder blades pulling away, hips pulling away. And it's the same thing here. And now turning again, but more explicitly from the legs. So I straighten this leg and it turns me to this corner. And then I bend that leg, straighten this leg, and it turns me to this corner. Bend this leg, straighten this leg, bend this leg, straighten this leg. So this is back foot energy. I'm straightening the back leg to bring the energy up. And if I was going to use it to attack another person with, then you can see it coming out of this, the same arm. So I push the ground here and that drives into this hand. My foot is pushing in that direction. So the force that comes out will be in the opposite direction. It'll be in this direction. And then I pull with this hand. Now this one starts straightening. And so the force that comes out of this side of my body is going in the opposite direction to the push of my foot. So Newton's third law of motion, basically. Pull, push, pull, push, pull. So this is back foot energy. My back leg is emptying and transferring its energy into my upper body. When you're using back leg energy, it really doesn't matter which side of your body it's coming out of. So if I'm a boxer and I'm like this, then generally they're in their back leg, and they're jabbing, and they'll jab with their opposite hand because they just have more reach, because they've got the width of their torso added to the length of their leg and their arm. So they'd be jabbing like this to wear the person down. But if they wanted to produce a killer blow, then they would need to use front foot energy. So they'd need to come into the front foot. Now, when they come into the front foot, if I'm coming into the front foot, then my front foot is pushing in that direction. It's pushing forwards, which means when I sink into the foot, the energy that's being produced is going backwards, and I want it to come forwards. So this is where the power of the front foot comes in, because that has to loop around my body into the opposite hand. So front foot energy is always cross energy. Back foot energy can be cross energy or not. Generally, it's cross energy because you want but I could equally be jabbing from here if I wanted. But if I'm getting the energy from the front foot, it's got to loop around the body so that it can go from traveling backwards to traveling forwards through here. If I wanted to get it coming out of this hand, I'd have to sink back and then come forwards again into the foot. Basically, I'm using like the momentum of my body rather than the thrusting energy from the ground. Again, I push the ground here and that gets the energy coming out here. And then I pull the ground and then I get this leg issuing the energy from this hand. And now I'm going to pull with this foot now to pull myself into it. And I just want to feel, it's a strange use of the leg because I'm sort of pulling, I'm grabbing the ground and shrinking to pull myself into it, but I'm turning strongly at the same time. So I'm pulling, and now how do I get this turn? How do I get the turn continuing? It's really from the leg, which has been bending, beginning to straighten and push this hip backwards. And it's that that throws the energy around into the opposite hand. The leg is really bending, but also straightening within that bending to produce the turn, to produce the direction that the energy is going to go in. So let's just try it. I've straightened the leg here. Now I've just pulled with the leg. And then once I get past the front, I can start pushing with the leg to drive this hip backwards. And you can really feel how that sort of loops around you and into the opposite hand. And then I can catch the ground here, pull, and quite quickly I'm beginning to push with the leg to throw the energy around this looping pathway behind my back and into my opposite hand. So it just becomes the first warm-up exercise, and we can really see now the mechanics behind cross energy. So the hand that's wrapping around your back, which seems to be a bit of a waste, you'd want it interacting with the other person. That's actually passing the energy to the other arm. Now, I just want to feel the twist, that sort of twisting, like wringing out a towel through the body. This is what's important. It's very sort of muscular, but of the core, not muscles of your limbs, so much as muscles around your spine. I'm pulling and I pass that around and it comes into this hand. Yeah, everything's shrinking. Then at some point, it has to start expanding. Otherwise, the energy won't come out. And it's from here. It's from the squeezing, lengthening of the front foot. So this is front foot energy. And you can see it has a very strong torque, a very strong twisting, turning action. And that's its sort of deadliness. The thing with the jab is it's sort of a straight line. I'm pushing back to get, and so it's like a bullet that just goes through the person. Whereas front foot energy, it's got this twist, and it sort of penetrates and just stays inside and ruptures things, internal organs. So here I'm turning, and this would be like a hook, like the boxer's hook, or the uppercut, which is basically the same thing. But it's very close range. You've got to have the person close to you, whereas a jab is far away. If you're just jabbing, then it's the guy with the longest reach that's going to win. So to use this hooking type energy from the front foot, you just need to be very skilled. You need to be able to open an opportunity for yourself to come in. Into this front foot twisting, talking energy. And the person who was best at that was Mike Tyson. So when you practice in this way, really using the front foot to get this twisting, spiraling, tightening, spiraling around the spine, it feels like you're wrapping yourself up in these rubber sheets. Something is there that's squeezing you. You can just become tough inside and squeeze your whole being in order to get energy out and activate the spirit. What we want to catch is that point where the pulling of the leg begins to be a pushing. That's the bit where my mind has to really be spirited. Just imagine you're a wet towel. Someone's coming up and just trying to wring it out. And so that's what this exercise is doing. It's sort of wringing us out. We're in the grip of this exercise. So it's not so much us doing the exercise, it's more like the exercise is doing us in. It's really exhausting. Okay. Okay, now let's just try. Very simple, the figures of 8 again, but now with 1 foot forwards. I'm going around this foot and around this foot. So when I come forwards into this foot, I have to be very careful that I don't let this collapse. I don't let the knee come in, and I don't let the hip empty. Because if I do, when I come back into it, I'm going to have to do something special to get the knee out again. So as you come into the front foot, just try and keep this open. The more you come into the front foot, the more this should open here. And then when you come back into it, it's already open. You don't need to do anything special. This is something we have to be careful of with, because the back leg will it'll just lose its grip of the ground and its power and its ability to quickly change from empty to full if you're not careful. And what helps that is if you make sure that when you come into this foot, you're coming in largely because this leg is pushing you in. So this leg now is very active, it's strong. And I'm just trying to keep my outside edge in contact with the ground. So the leg never really straightens. And then here, this is straightening to push me into this leg. But no matter how straight it gets, there's always a slight bend in it, which means it can pull back very quickly. Remember, if I'm straightening this leg to drive myself into this foot, the straightening of the leg is pushing me here, but it's also pushing the foot into the ground. Yeah, so both ends are active. This is what we want to make sure. So I'm straightening the leg, but at the same time, I'm getting a better contact with the ground with my foot. Not just at the one I'm pushing into, but the one I'm pushing out of. You see? you're letting the knee collapse in. Try and keep the knee out. It's really difficult. I mean, something in the mind has to change. And the best thing the way of practicing really is just going down into a squat with your knees out to get the openness here. There's two limiting factors, really. There's strength in the legs and there's openness in the groin. So just sitting down on the floor with your legs as wide apart as possible. And then just, reaching for one foot, reaching for the other foot, and slowly your legs will be able to splay further and further apart. That's the stretch that we really need to become better at. Because the more I sink, the more it opens the knees. So this has to open as well. Otherwise, I'm going to cause problems either in my hip or in my knees. So if this is trying to get my knees to pull in and my will is trying to push my knees out, then somewhere something is going to break. So it has to be relaxed. I have to find the large mind that allows me to stay open. So this opens and this stays open here. Then when I push back into it, it can open even more. In a way, it's almost like we're trying to approach the possibility of the impossible. We're trying to practice something that probably we've never done. We've probably been locked up here pretty much since we started standing upright and walking. That's why the work is so difficult and it takes so long, because we're trying to right mistakes that were made before we can remember, before we can think or speak, and possibly before we could even stand up. I saw someone pushing a baby in a pram, and it was a young baby, but I could see the baby was sort of on its belly, and it was pushing up like this. It was rearing up off its belly, and I thought, why is it doing that? And then I noticed that the mother had put her mobile phone under the baby's head, and the baby was pushing itself up in order to watch the screen. It was too young to even sit up. And you think, what are people doing to their children? And now it's changed. So now the figure of 8 is coming out as I come into this foot. So this is the sense that the energy is leading. So the more relaxed you get into it, the more the component parts will sort of separate out. So it's as I sink into this foot that it enables this tentacle to come out and loop around this foot, and then that drags my body along with it. This is the thing with practice. You mustn't be afraid for it to seem to go wrong. Often it's just trying to take you into the next level. And now let's just try just a little bit of stepping. It's again the same idea. I'm going around the leg with the figure of 8, and then I can step the other one. Try and keep the figure of 8 continuous. Step and around. Soft. So we're trying to do something. We have an image that we're trying to conform to, despite the fact that our body doesn't like it. But we don't want to be hard about it, either with the will or with the mind. Because our image may be incorrect and it may not suit our body. So we're trying to do something, but we're always open to the possibility that something better may happen. This is the problem, you know. We expect the teacher to give us the answer. That's up to us. The teacher just sets you a problem. He asks a question, and then it's up to you to go away, practice, and come to your own solution, which will depend upon you, and it may not suit anyone else, and it may not suit you tomorrow. So there's a sense of reviewing. You're reviewing what you've been taught all the time, or rather what you've learned. We're having to self-correct all the time. Because as soon as you make progress in one front, everything else goes out. So John used to say, progress at Tai Chi is a series of going back to square one. And now let's just bring it back. So this feeling of legs coming from the hips, stemming from the sacrum, same as the arms. As here, it has a sense that the shoulder comes up and away and then drops down into the arm. It's very similar here. Sense that my hip goes back and up and then drops down into the leg and the foot. And then just bringing it up. This playful quality. And then just let it subside. It's there in the background. It's going on internally. This is our inner quiet. Our inner quiet is not a stillness, really. By quiet is all we mean, really, is there's no words. We're not talking to ourselves in our head, but the energy is really active and bright. And the word John would have used was delightful. You love that word.